Well, I finished reading this, so now I'm going to be talking about it. Obviously, this is the third book in the 5-book series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This one's The Titan's Curse. And it's basically, we're going to see what happened after Talia's back and, like, the camp is safe, all that kind of stuff. Like, we're going to see what happens next. So without further ado, let's get right into the first section of this video, which is the important characters you are going to need to know for my summarizing and thoughts on this book. So yeah. Alright, the characters you're going to need to know for this video include Percy Jackson, our main character, Grover Underwood, Annabeth Chase, Talia. I don't believe they ever actually mentioned Talia's last name. I don't think that they ever actually did say her last name. Bianca D'Angelo, Nico D'Angelo, Artemis, Sally Jackson, Apollo, Ares, Luke Castellan, Aphrodite, Zoe Nightshade, though there's like some sort of accent thing on the E and Zoe, so I don't know if maybe there's a different pronunciation for that, but I'm just going to be saying Zoe. Let me know in the comments if there's actually, in her specific case, a different pronunciation for her first name, or if it's just like because she's like I don't know, like millions of years old or something. There's Blackjack, Bessie, there is Atlas / the General. Atlas is the General, and then there is Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And that's pretty much everyone you're going to need for note for this. There are other gods that show up, like Poseidon, Zeus, Hermes, Mr. D, and there's even like Chiron, obviously, but we don't know. Let's just get into the first chapter. Alright, so right off with the first chapter, we got Percy, we got Annabeth, and we got Talia. In Sally's car, Sally obviously being Percy's mother, because she has to give them a ride to where Grover needs their help up in Maine, because Grover, being a satyr, has to go out and find people who might be half-bloods and bring them to camp and stuff, and he found siblings, two kids who he thinks are half-bloods. Their names being Bianca and Nico D'Angelo, and basically Sally's giving the others a ride up there. And the school that these two kids are at is a military school, like I said, it's up in Maine, and the story takes place in winter time, not summer this time. It's not summer this time. This time it's winter, which is a nice change, I guess. I still didn't like this book as much as the second one, I'm telling you. Like, oh my gosh, Sea of Monsters was just really good. It wasn't a 10 out of 10, but it was still really good. But this one, it's still good. It's about as good as the first one, and for me personally. But basically, once they're at the military school, Sally obviously is just dropping them off, so she's not here anymore. So once they get to the military school, two adults try to stop them, and they assume that these two are immortals, which one of them actually is, but we'll get to who the other one was momentarily. And basically Talia does a little trick that Percy's like, I wish I could do that, where she manipulates the mist to make the two adults that confronted the three kids be like, oh yeah, you guys are students here. Well, go on. Go to the party that's going on in the gym. I don't remember what kind of party. It's just, your normal school party. But basically, while in there, they kind of see Bianca and Nico on the far end playing some game called Mytho Magic together, which is a game based off of Greek mythology, which is, weirdly fitting since these kids end up being half-bloods. Ain't that interesting, but they can't exactly go right over yet. Also, Grover is here now, because Grover is waiting for them, obviously, and can't quite go over just yet. So Talia, and the reason why is because turns out one of the two adults clearly is a monster in disguise, and this happened to be this one guy, Dr. Thorne, who we later learn in chapter 2. We later learn is, I believe it was Manticore? Yeah, he was a Manticore. He's the Manticore. And, So basically, the others go into the crowd. They go to the crowd of students. Like Percy's about to Percy's kind of dancing with Annabeth when suddenly something happens, and they realize, oh my gosh, wait, Bianca and Nico aren't here anymore. Where are they? They're not in the bleachers or whatever. And so they go to look. So Annabeth and Percy go to look for Talia and Grover, who were dancing together somewhere else. But Percy stops when he sees Dr. Thorne bringing Nico and Bianca outside at the gym and stuff, and he has the great decision to run after them. And this decision ends up being pretty bad because Percy gets caught, and this leads us into the next chapter of the Titan's Curse. Okay, chapter 2. Percy, Nico, and Bianca are all captured by this Dr. Thorne guy, and he's bringing them outside into the snow to a cliff, and this is where we basically learn that Dr. Thorne, as I mentioned earlier, is a manticore, which, I mean, okay, we're just getting all the monsters, really just seeing all the monsters, and honestly, I have to say, as far as the beginning of a Percy Jackson book goes, I kind of feel a little I usually feel pretty underwhelmed. And this is something that happened with, like, the second book, too. I just felt kind of underwhelmed because, really, the beginning of all the books, at least so far, like, and I have started reading the fourth one, too, so really, the first four, I know for sure, like, they kind of just all start the same, like, Percy's off at some school, whether it be his or someone else's, and then a monster comes and attacks, and oh no, and now he has to get back into the, grind of, like, being I don't know, like a Greek half-blood hero or something. It just feels a little repetitive after technically four books, but this is about the third book, so we're not going to talk about the fourth one yet, but I can't get ahead of myself, but basically, he's trying to think, oh, how are we going to get out of this, and remember the empathy link that Grover created for him and Percy last book when he got captured by the Cyclops Polyphemus, I believe is the dude's name? Wow, I actually remembered the guy's name. I mean, I don't usually remember these names. But then again, you know what? Maybe I do. I mean, I can remember all the names in Harry Potter, so why not in Percy Jackson? I mean, they're both about out there as names can go. Well, at least that's pretty much how my grandma would describe it. She's like, where do people find these names and stuff? It's like, I don't know, but I am getting off topic. Basically, turns out, hey, maybe the empathy link did work. Because Grover, Annabeth, and Talia show up, and they're fighting the Manticore, Percy, and stuff. Bianca and Nico are kind of just standing there like, what the hell is happening? And also, there's also a helicopter here. Like, there was a helicopter that showed up, and obviously it was a helicopter, I guess, was supposed to take them, And, right as they're losing the fight, guess who shows up? Well, new characters called the Hunters. A group of a bunch of tween girls led by who we learn when the battle's over, and also before I say who the leader is, Annabeth, during the fight, Annabeth falls off the cliff with Dr. Thorne, the Manticore. And she's gone. Well, I know she's not dead. I'll just say she's gone. Like, she doesn't come back in this chapter. She doesn't come back for many chapters. But the leader of this group of hunters, these tween girl hunters, is the goddess Artemis. And now, I recall from reading the first book, I remember recalling, like, yeah, that's the one that refuses to have any relationships, to have any kids, but they still have a cabin for her at Camp Half-Blood because she would be insulted if it didn't include one, even though she's not going to be having any half-blood kids, or any kids at all, anyway. Which, I mean, you know what, good decision, because, I mean, she does prefer to present as a 12-year-old girl, so thank God for that, but also that was actually her preference, like I said, so there's that, and yeah, and in the next chapter, I'll talk a little more about how I feel about these hunters. Because I was not the biggest fan of them at first, and I still have my issues with them now. But I'll talk about that next chapter when we actually get to know the hunters a little bit. Alright, chapter 3. everyone, obviously, now that the battle's over, and you got Nico and Bianca D'Angelo over here not knowing what just happened, because, like, I mean, they, you know? And, like, so obviously everybody has to explain to them, like, yeah, Greek gods, monsters, all that, half-bloods, heroes, all that stuff is actually real, and that is what you just saw. In fact, hey, you see that girl Talia right there? Zeus is her dad. You see that guy Percy right there? His dad is Poseidon. You see that girl that just helped save us all? That's a literal goddess, Artemis. But, anyways, Artemis is like, yeah, but you know how I said Annabeth fell off the cliff? Well, Artemis is like, oh yeah, no, she's not down there. I mean, she's probably alive, who knows, she's probably alive. But yeah, no, she disappeared. She's not down there at the bottom of the cliff, so, I mean, we can't really go looking for her if she's clearly not there, which is what Artemis figures out. And then Artemis wants Percy and Bianca to come into her main tent, because at this point the hunters have set up a camp. And, this is where we already technically met this one girl, Zoe Nightshade, who is basically the lieutenant, second in command of the hunters, right underneath Artemis. And, in the tent, you know, Percy and Bianca basically recount everything that happened, and this is when Artemis and Zoe together convince Bianca to, instead of going to Half-Blood Hill and being part of Camp Half-Blood with everyone, including her little brother Nico. By the way, I'm pretty sure Bianca's supposed to be like 12 years old and Nico's supposed to be like 10. If I remember correctly, yeah, like they're like 2 years apart. Bianca being 12 and Nico being 10. Yeah, you know, because the hunters is a group of girls who get to be immortal if they follow some simple rules and stuff. Bianca, you know, could join, and that's what Artemis and Zoe want, and ultimately she says yes, and she recites the little lines, which include a rule that would immediately be a no for me, alongside the fact that, like, you know, besides the fact that, like, just immediately being like, oh, this group of only girls sounds like a nightmare to me. I mean, if you guys know me, and stuff, you know I prefer to spend my time with boys. And like the rule, basically one of the rules is, like, you know, you can't, if you join the hunters, you can't have any romantic relations with men at all. So, like, to me, it's like, well, great, there goes something I want in my life. So I would never join the hunters, and, like, that whole thing just annoyed me, because, like, okay, obviously, I know, like, what I want in my life is obviously very different to what other women may want, but to me, it's like, Bianca, you're 12. You could change your mind, and, like, like, for all you know, you're gonna change your mind one day, be like, maybe I do want a romantic relationship with a man. And also, now that I'm thinking about it, it's specified that you can only not have a romantic relationship with men. So that doesn't qualify to any possible lesbians that you have in this group of hunters, right? Like, the girls could be hooking up with each other. And, I mean, that is kind of weird, considering these girls are all, like, tweens. But, I mean, technically speaking, you know, like, you're 12, you can have a relationship. You know, 12-year-olds have romantic relationships. Like, does this rule apply to lesbians? Because, I mean, there's no rule saying that the girls can't be dating other girls to be a hunter who gets to be immortal forever and hunt alongside Artemis and stuff. So, I mean, I'm going on a ramble here, but I'm just saying I have, like, a lot of opinions on these guys. It sounds like honestly, being stuck with a bunch of girls forever sounds like a nightmare. And obviously, immortality doesn't actually mean immortality forever. Like, if you die in battle, then you're dead. You know, it just basically means you won't die of old age. But still, it sounds like a nightmare. I can't believe Bianca said yes. Like, girl, you're 12. At least think about it for, like, a week or two before making your final decision. You kind of went into this rashly, I have to say. But anyways, let's get into chapter 4. Alright, so in chapter 5, morning comes, and Artemis's brother, Apollo, sun god, I believe, yeah, sun god, shows up, and on his little sun chariot, because it's morning, so he has to, you know, and Artemis is like, hey, can you give these heroes and my hunters a ride down to Camp Half-Blood because I sense that there is a monster off to the west, and I need to go see what that is by myself because I don't want to put my hunters in danger or whatever. So she goes out to do that. Hunters and heroes are in Apollo's sun chariot, and I'm telling you, the hunters, like, oh my gosh, their hatred towards men is insane. Like, they think men is, like, the worst thing. Like, they think, like, men are, like, the worst thing ever. And it's, like, to me, it's, like, I have the opposite opinion. I will pick men over women. There's only one thing in this world I've ever, like, full-heartedly sided with women on, and I'm not even gonna say what it is, because it is very controversial, and it has nothing to do with Percy Jackson. Can you guys tell that the hunters pissed me off because of their hatred towards men? Anyways, so Apollo's heading south with everybody, going there, and he's like, hey, Talia, half-sister of mine, would you like to drive the chariot? And Talia is very opposed to this. She's like, no, I do not want to drive this chariot that's high up in the sky. But Apollo gets her in the driver's seat anyways, and what happens? She's really bad at it. She's really tense. She can barely pay attention. She can barely focus, basically. She crash lands into Camp Half-Blood's lake. And this leads us into the next chapter. Did I accidentally say chapter 5 last clip? Because I might have. But anyways, this is chapter 5. So, now that they're back at camp, Percy and Talia go straight to Chiron and Mr. D to tell them, like, hey, this is what happened. Annabeth's gone. Hunter saved us. We got the D'Angelos here, but Bianca's part of the Hunters now. Don't really know what that's about. Like, whatever. And then Chiron's like, oh, the Hunters are here. Well, guess what? Every time the Hunters come, we have an honorary capture the flag match between Camp Half-Blood and the Hunters. And so Natalia and Percy are tasked with telling every single cabin this. Oh my god. I have to go see what they're barking about. They're probably barking at a cat. We're watching some dogs right now, and every time a cat walks by the door, like, they just start barking and whining. Like, they want to eat my cat, but it's not my fat cat, Bella, because she's right there. She's the one that usually targets. What am I talking about? Anyways, so while they're doing this capture the flag thing, like, Talia and Percy have a talk about her mortal parent, obviously being her mother, and she's like, and Talia's like, yeah, after, like, I wasn't a pine tree anymore, I learned that my mom died in, like, a drunk car crash, and, like, Percy's like, oh, that's sad, and she's like, yeah, well, my mom was an alcoholic, and it's like, oh, that's unfortunate. Anyways, Talia gets pissed at Percy, so, like, so basically Percy goes off to do his own thing now, and he ends up sending an Iris message to Tyson, who's obviously his half-brother from the last book, who is a Cyclops. And apparently Poseidon's the one that's mostly the parent to all the Cyclops, because I guess he just really, really likes it. I don't even remember what the mothers are. Like, I think they're nymphs or something? I don't know. I don't remember. But basically, he's working in the forges under the sea to make weapons and stuff for Poseidon's sea army or whatever. So he gets an Iris call to him. And then after that is dinner, and everybody's kind of just a wreck. Also, to be clear, because I didn't mention this yet, Clarice LaRue, Ares' daughter Ares, she's not here. Which is, obviously, Percy's like, oh, that's odd. Guess Clarice doesn't come during the year. I guess she's only a summer camper. But basically, during dinner, like, it's very clear the only ones actually having a good time at the Hunters, but I guess that's because of their close camaraderie and watching, like, Percy notices that Bianca is, like, already really close and buddy-buddy with them, and, like, poor Nico's just stuck with the Hermes cabin, because obviously Hermes always takes in, like, the non-claimed half-bloods, basically meaning, like, no one knows who Bianca and Nico's parent, like, godparent is yet. So he's with Hermes, and then, like, And then, like, Bianca's with the hunters. And remember how I mentioned Artemis has her own honorary cabin? Well, if the hunters are ever staying at camp, that's where the hunters stay, in Artemis's cabin. Where if she were to ever have kids, the half-bloods that are her children would have been there, but she's never going to have kids. And honestly, it scares me to think if, like, she was, like, forced to, because she likes to embody the appearance of a 12-year-old girl. And that's, I mean, even if, like, it was an adult, that would be terrifying. What am I talking about? Anyways, that night, Percy has a nightmare, which happens often. He has a nightmare where Annabeth, all weak and beat up from her fall off the cliff, sees Luke, who seems to be trapped. Obviously, Luke is a traitor from book 1. And he's, like, there. He's, like, seems to be trapped under what looked like a cavern roof that he has to hold up or something. And he tricks Annabeth to come down and help him, just to leave Annabeth having to hold up this cavern roof, because that's the best thing that Percy could think it is. Obviously, later we learn it's not actually a cavern roof, but I won't say what it is just yet, because it actually was a pretty big twist. I was kind of like, yeah, I was kind of having a hard time believing that was a cavern roof you were seeing, Percy. I mean, what it ended up being was very more believable, much more believable. But, Annabeth is stuck here, and she is in great danger, which leads us into chapter 6. Okay, so chapter 6 is a very packed chapter. So, Percy, in the morning, basically, Percy goes to see Grover, tells him about his nightmare about Annabeth, and Grover's like, yeah, last night, I saw Zoe, like, go to the big house to, like, tell Chiron about some worry she was having about Artemis, and obviously, Percy goes like, what are you doing up in the middle of the night, saying what Zoe and the hunters are doing? And obviously, Grover clearly has the biggest old crush on, like, Artemis and the hunters. And I guess it has to do with the whole nature thing, because he's a satyr connected to nature. Artemis is, like, I don't know, like, the goddess. I mean, I don't know if she's the goddess of nature, but she definitely has connections to nature. Actually, hold up. What is Artemis the goddess of? Well, I know she's the moon. Yeah, she's the wilderness. Yeah, she's of the hunt, so hunting, animals, the moon, whatever chastity is, wilderness. Yeah, she's basically that. Obviously, she's the moon. Her brother's the sun. And also, I think her brother was something else. I don't recall, but it was something else that was pretty big to his character, I think. But I'll get to that later if it comes up at all. But basically, yeah. And now, so basically now is capture the flag. They have captured the flag the next day because everyone had to prepare and stuff. Now it's capture the flag, and like I said, it's the hunters versus all of Camp Half-Blood. So it's not like the camp being split down two. It's literally just the visiting group and the campers that are there. Yeah, and so basically, they all have a plan, and Percy and Talia are like, Talia's obviously being the leader and stuff, and she's trying to be like, this is what we're going to do, and Percy's like, but if you see a chance, go for it. Talia's like, no, we followed the plan. And you can just see how chaotic these two are when they're in a group together, but I mean, they're basically the same person, just one's the son of Poseidon, and one's the daughter of Zeus. But I mean, they are also two of the possibilities for a big prophecy of the series, like the big prophecy and stuff. So like obviously they're they're just very similar, and like Annabeth's even said before in this series that Talia and Percy, like, they're either gonna be best friends or they're gonna be the worst enemies. But basically, capture the flag happens, and Percy sees a chance to like try and get the flag, the hunter's flag, and bring it back to their side. And while he's doing that, like, he gets basically ambushed, and everybody's getting ambushed. And before he knows it, Zoe, I believe it was Zoe, yeah, Zoe beats him with the camper's flag back to her side, and that leads the hunters to win. And Chiron's like, yes, they want 5,000 and something in a row, which basically is like, yeah, no, the competition is 0. The competition is 0. The hunters always win, which I'm not surprised about. I mean, a bunch of, like, immortal girls have been at this for, like, not even decades, like, centuries. And in the case of Zoe, I guess eons. I don't know what she is, but we do learn a lot about Zoe Nightshade's time, because I'm telling you, she was so annoying at first. I was like, what are you doing? like, she was so annoying at first. Like, she was okay at the end, like, but she was annoying at first. It felt very much like how I felt about Tyson or even Clarice last book. But basically, because of this failure on the campers, Talia and Percy end up in a fight, arguing about whose fault it was and what happened. And, like, they got to a point of fighting that they're using their, like, OP, god, like, demigod powers. Because, obviously, Percy has control of the ocean. And, like, Talia could just zap lightning. And apparently she's even been known to fry off people's eyebrows by accident or whatever. But, basically, as they're fighting, the oracle shows up. Now, something I did not mention was that the previous night, before capturing the flag, Percy sneaks into the big house to go see the oracle, to see if the oracle can say anything about his Annabeth nightmares or whatever, but the oracle doesn't do anything at all. So he kind of just leaves disappointed. But now the oracle's here, and the oracle goes right up to Zoe Nightshade, says a prophecy, and then sits down on a rock, because obviously the oracle's trapped inside the body of a really, really old mummy. So, yeah, and everyone obviously was in shock, like, wow, the oracle hasn't moved for forever. So this leads us into the very next chapter. Alright, guys, now chapter 7. So now that Zoe has a quest that she has to go on because the oracle told her so, everyone basically has a meeting. All the cabin leaders, Zoe, Bianca, Percy, and, like, Chiron, Mr. D, they all have a meeting in the big house and stuff, and it is this, and Zoe is obviously being a hunter, very against any man coming, so she's like, alright, so it'll be 3 hunters and 2 of you guys, and, like, even then, she only wanted to bring hunters at first, because so basically disregarding a line in the prophecy the oracle gave her directly that literally was like, you have to work with the campers here or else you're gonna fail. So, like, it's crazy to me she's still like, no, hunters only. Like, it's like, are you not listening? But even then, like, she's like, okay, fine, I'll take Talia. And Grover really wanted to come, so she's like, okay, I'll take Grover, but then I'm having Bianca come, and I'm gonna have my friend Phoebe come, these 2 hunters. And there's your 5, because I don't know what's going on out there, I apologize, but, like, the prophecy that was given to her clearly stated only 5 are gonna go west to go save Artemis. Whatever's happening to Artemis. The prophecy did say goddess in chains, but at this point, they still don't really know what happened to Artemis, or at least Percy doesn't know exactly what kind of danger Artemis is in just yet, but the prophecy kind of already said so. The goddess in chains, as we're going to see shortly, because obviously Percy's upset, because now he doesn't get to go, and Grover's like, oh, shoot, I'm sorry, because, like, Grover's like, you know what, I'll stay, but obviously he's always like, nope, it is decided. And the Stoll brothers, meanwhile, offer a shirt from the gift shop here, at Camp Half-Blood, because apparently there's a gift shop, which, I mean, hey, cool. Can I have some merch? I kind of want a Camp Half-Blood shirt, no, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not too big on it being orange. Why are they yelling? Oh my gosh. Anyway, but basically, this shirt actually ends up kind of a trick, but later it's revealed it actually wasn't by the Stoll brothers, it was by Aphrodite. Which, okay, I thought it was the Stoll brothers. They are Hermes' kids. The Stoll brothers are the sons of Hermes. They're kind of mischievous and stuff. They remind me of Fred and George Weasley, actually. They remind me of them. And I know that Rick Riordan got a lot of inspiration from J.K. Rowling's works. Like, I'm pretty sure he has openly talked about it. And there's also a lot of obvious similarities, including literally personality traits of your main trio characters. But anyway, so that night, still feeling disappointed and stuff, because now he can't go on the adventure, which honestly is like, oh, well, I guess the story's over if he can't go on the adventure. But Percy has a dream, like, as he does, and Artemis is in the same place where Annabeth is trapped under what he still thinks is a cavern ceiling. And then basically, like, and basically Artemis gets tricked into switching places with Annabeth. So now Artemis is trapped there, and she can't move. And I'm pretty sure at some point they actually put literal chains on her or something, like, which I mean explains the goddess and chains line. But I don't know if that was in this dream or something. I don't quite call that exactly. But basically, Percy wakes up from this dream, and there's like something at the front door of his cabin. So he goes, and there is Blackjack, who is a new-ish character. Blackjack is a black Pegasus from Luke's cruise ship, the Princess Andromeda from last book. He's one of the Pegasi that Percy released and saved. And because Percy's father is also the god of horses, like he's the one that created horses, Poseidon is. Percy can actually talk to horses and similar creatures such as zebras. Or even seahorses, I think. I'm pretty sure he could talk to seahorses too, but I don't mean like the mythological like seahorses. They're literally horses with like serpent tails. Like I mean seahorses, the tiny kind, the real kind. But anyway, that's where the chapter ends with Blackjack being like, "Yo, there's someone that needs help," and Percy's like, "Oh, really?" Because apparently he has to help a lot of sea creatures. Because he's the son of Poseidon, I guess. So, this leads us into the next chapter, which will be chapter 8. Did I say Annabeth was in that group last segment, in the last chapter? I don't know, but, like, if I did, correction there, because it's obviously Annabeth is not here. Annabeth is captured. Wait, now I think about it, no, I didn't say that. Never mind, Alright, so chapter 8, Percy goes out and to go help whatever creature it is, and he goes swim into the bottom of, I think it's a lake or something? I don't know. I think it was like the lake or it was like the bay, like a bay area in like New York City or something, like that's by Camp Half-Blood, but he finds that a sunken fisherman ship with a net where a creature he's never seen before is trapped in it, and it is... You know how I mentioned last chapter how there was the horse serpents, like they were fish, but they were also like literally part horse. Well, this time it's a cow, and he was like, "Oh, I can't talk to cows, so I hope my tone of voice calms it down enough so I can help him." But ultimately, Percy's able to get the sea cow out, and while he's heading back to his cabin, he spots Nico over by the dining pavilion, and he just happens to have Annabeth's Yankees cap, not Nico, Percy. Percy has Annabeth's Yankees cap that turns her invisible. He has it, so he puts it on and sneaks over so he can see what Nico's watching. It turns out it's the hunters. Zoe's talking to some of her fellow hunters that Phoebe is now injured because of like centaur blood that was coated on the inside of the shirt the Stoll brothers gave, which means now they don't have their 5th member that has to go, and like Zoe's just like, "We'll go without then, it's fine, we'll go without then, even though you literally need 5 people." And then like once the hunters are gone, Percy realizes, wait, Nico's planning to go with, because he wants to go with his sister and stuff, because Bianca's going, so why wouldn't Nico? And so Percy's like, "Hey, look, Nico, dude, you're too little for this, you're like 10 years old, you should stay here." And so Nico's like, "Alright, what about you go?" So like they decide Percy's gonna go, and Nico basically forces him to promise that nothing will happen to Bianca. That sure goes great as time goes on. Oh my gosh. Because the prophecy given this book did state that not 1, but 2 people were gonna die. And I was just like, oh, that'll be great, won't it, Nico? And also there's something about the D'Angelos I want to talk about later, but I won't talk about, but like I said, I won't talk about it later, because like there is a big plot twist, question mark, with the D'Angelos that I predicted very early on, very early on, I have to say, like I got like the first sign of who their godparent is. I pretty much had it figured out. I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna say later, but basically, Percy's like, yeah, okay, I'll sneak with the group, invisible, because I have Annabeth's Yankees house, I can just go with them, invisibly, So that's what Percy plans, and this leads us into the next chapter. I'm so sorry about my brothers, by the way. It's nighttime. They're playing. Well, I say nighttime. 6:46. It's still light out, which I'm so happy about. Like sunset's going later in the day, and like that's being happy because if I were to go to like say the park or something and hang out in the swings or something, like I have more time. But anyways, let's get to the next chapter. All right, guys, time for chapter 9. Chapter 9. All right, so we got Percy invisible in the early morning, following them in their van. He assumes it's Argus driving. Argus obviously being the security guard, the main security guard for Camp Alphabet, and he's following invisibly on Blackjack, you know, the Pegasus I mentioned. And he's watching them up from on top of the skyscraper, with suddenly grapevines are grabbing at Blackjack and him. And there's Mr. D. Mr. D's like, you really think I would have noticed you trying to escape camp? But ultimately Percy gets Mr. D to let him go, and the only reason Mr. D actually lets him go because he's like, well, you know, the prophecy didn't mention that 2 people would die, and maybe I'll get lucky. It'll be you, Percy. Which honestly, I mean, that's pretty mean, Mr. D. But at least you're letting Percy go on the adventure, or else this book would be over. Because the book solely follows Percy, so it's like, oh, I guess we're done. Percy's got nothing to do, or at least it'll be a very boring book if it still continued. But, anyways, so basically Percy keeps following all the way down to Washington D.C. and by this point he's realized, wait a minute, it is not Argus driving. Zoe's driving. This 12-year-old girl who's gonna be 12 forever, like, is driving, but you know what, she's been around for a while, so honestly, like, when it comes to characters who, like, have been around for, like, centuries but look a certain age, it's like, well, of course they know how to drive. I mean, she even says at some point in the book that she has been driving automobiles since they were invented, so to me, it's like, well, yeah, let her drive. It's fine, she actually has experience. She's been around forever. But I will say Zoe, at this point, was still extremely annoying to me. Like, it took a lot of character development, character development on her part, for me to probably be like, yeah, but I think it was just annoying me that, like, she and the other hunters, and even Artemis, were just doubting Percy and stuff just because he's a boy, and I'm like, okay, like, I don't care how long you've been, like, hunters together, or, like, practicing your skills and stuff. I mean, Percy's still technically stronger than all of you but Artemis. Because just based off of being the son of one of the main 3 gods, he's more powerful than pretty much all the hunters but Artemis. And he's only not more powerful than Artemis because Artemis is a literal goddess. Like, to me, it's just like, why are you doubting him? Like, what, just because he's a man? Like, I don't know. Like, you guys can tell the hunters and their way of thinking just pisses me off a lot. Y'all can tell. But, basically, at Washington, D.C., he basically gets to, like, the monuments and stuff, where there's, like, that strip mall. Oh, God, I said strip. It's something very different came to my head, but I think that's what they're called, right? Strip mall. And then there's, like, all the museum. There's, like, the museums and stuff, that area of Washington, D.C., right? And he, like, goes there. And this is when he notices the Manticore from at the military school up in Maine. You know, Dr. Thorne. So he's like, and he thinks that Dr. Thorne's gonna be following the group into one of the museums for a second, but he doesn't. He goes into a different museum. So Percy's like, you know what? I can catch up with my friends and the hunters later. I'll follow Dr. Thorne. And this is when he sees the big plan. There is a general. There's Luke. There's a bunch of other guys. And they have a plan. And basically, 12 undead skeleton warriors rise from one of the exhibits, from the dirt in one of the exhibits, and these guys are like trackers. Like, you give them, like, you know, like how, like, tracking dogs and stuff. Like, you give them something with a certain person's scent on it, like, they'll be able to follow it. Like, and these guys, like, will be able to follow it. So, like, the general basically has, like, a cloth from the hunters. I assumed Zoe, something from Zoe or something. Something for Zoe, obviously, because, I mean, you have to have it from either Zoe or Bianca. They're the only 2 hunters going on the trip, but, and he's about to drop it down to the undead soldiers so that they'd be able to track those guys, but Percy, luckily, while still invisible because the cab jumps in time, they get it out of the way before it could be sniffed, but these undead soldiers, by the way, the undead soldiers could see him despite the cap. They could actually see through the invisibility because they were staring right at him. But anyway, they get a piece of his jacket. They get a piece of his jacket, and they get his tent. And now Percy's being tracked forever, or at least until they're defeated. So that's great. But hey, at least he's out of there, and at least Zoe or Bianca or whatever isn't being tracked. But now it's Percy, and he's running, and this leads us into the next chapter. Alright, chapter 10. Percy's running into the museum that the group was in, that the group he's been following was in, like, obviously being Zoe, Bianca, Talia, and Grover. And he runs in, and then they're all pretty mad. They're like, "What are you doing here, Percy?" I mean, Grover's not mad. He's kind of just shocked, but, like, obviously Zoe's, like, really mad, because she's like, "How dare a boy that's on there?" Because apparently Grover doesn't count as a boy by count of being a satyr. I kind of feels unfair to Percy, honestly. Like, Grover's, even if Grover's technically a satyr, he's just as much of a male as Percy is. You know, like, so, granted, I know she technically only was okay with Grover coming along because of his nature powers and his great ability to track things and stuff, but, anyways, suddenly, this is when a Nemean lion shows up, and this is something I didn't mention last clip, but while Percy was watching the general and his big plan with the undead soldiers and stuff, he did also hear that a little distraction present was sent to, or it was already sent to the other museum where the heroes and the hunters are, which turns out to be the Nemean lion. So the five of them are fighting the lion, and it is Percy and Zoe who deliver the final blow. And after that experience, Zoe, still grudgingly, even though he's definitely proven himself to be a fighter, especially with this Nemean lion, like he's proven that he's skilled. Like the series has made a point that the thing he's most skilled at, when it comes to all the different fighting techniques and stuff at camp or whatever, like, is swordplay. Like, he's really good at that. Like, it really, hence why he's so good with Riptide. But, she's like, "Okay, fine, you can come along, even though we technically need you anyway, because we need a fifth member. I need you to come along now, I guess." Like, it's like, the prophecy literally told you 5 go west, and you're just like, "Alright, fine, I guess I'll let Percy come along." Now, you need him, or else you're... like, God, I'm supposed to listen to the prophecy. Like, that line is, like, so specific, too. Like, it's, like, 5. Like, just take him. Like, try to go with only 4. Just, what the... Anyway. Like, anyway, another thing is that, the Nemean lion coat, like, the fur coat, turned into a literal coat, and Zoe's like, "Take it. You're the one that..." She's like, "Percy, you're the one that killed the Nemean lion. Take it as a prize." And obviously, because Zoe and the hunters and Artemis, they're all big in nature and anything, and so is Grover, which again, is like why Grover likes these girls so much. But I want me to realize that Grover's like 20 something technically, and like they're they're like hundreds of years old, but also in the body of 12-year-olds. But I guess he looks the same age. I don't know. Kind of okay. I'm thinking too much into the ages and like what they appear as age-wise. I'm thinking too much into it. And it's not like Grover made any advances on them. He's his goofy self. Anyway. I'm thinking too much anyway, but basically, like, Percy at first is like, "Are you sure? I mean, is this not against, like, your laws of nature or something?" And it's like, no, that's fair game. You can take that as a token prize or something for your defeat of the Nemean lion. And so he takes it, and he has it, and it turns out it's bulletproof. We learn later it's actually bulletproof, but I mean, hey, the Nemean lion fur was bulletproof and it was alive, so... Like, yeah, like, they had to, like, get it inside the mouth to defeat it, so... Yeah, but anyway, that leads us into the next chapter. Alright, chapter 11 is a pretty packed chapter, I have to say. This book had a lot going on at all times. Like, I definitely felt like there was a lot of things going on in this book, but it also has 20 chapters like the previous one, so even then, it's actually shorter than the first Percy Jackson book, which I appreciate. 22 chapters, I don't know. It's only 2 extra chapters than the second and third books, but I was still like... But basically in this chapter, they decided to ditch the van since the bad guys already know what their vehicle was anyway. They knew it was the van. They had been following them since New York. So they decided to go to a new subway in Washington D.C. the Washington D.C. subway. And notice I didn't say station because it's a literal subway. Like Bianca's like, that's weird. I was just here last year. There was no subway at all in Washington D.C., but now 1 year later it is, which is the first hint we get to a big little, I don't want to say plot twist, but revelation. I don't know about like Bianca and Nico's past that we'll get into later, but I was definitely thinking that. I was like, okay, that's weird, Bianca. What do you, like, unless you got, like, short-term memory loss or something. Like, which obviously not to make fun of people with short-term memory loss, but I was literally trying to figure out in my head, I'm like, I don't know I wasn't know. Like, what's funny is that I figured out who the godparent was, like, way easier than I figured out what the heck this whole subway station thing was, but ultimately, after riding around the subway for a while, they get to, like, the railroad tracks, like, at trains now, and they come across this homeless guy who's at his little fire and stuff, and he's like, hey, sure to fire me. I'm like, yeah, that's a very nice homeless guy. I mean, I know there's some nice homeless dudes out there, but you told me this guy's like wacko? I mean, he's in Washington, D.C. for crying out loud. He's probably on drugs, but, I mean, it turns out he's not, because he's not even a homeless guy, as we got to learn later, but basically he's like, oh, you need easy way west? Oh, well, look at that train. It's gonna go west. And they're like, huh. Well, thanks, homeless man. So they get on the train, it's heading west, and Percy has a little talk with Talia about her history with the hunters, because throughout this entire time, Talia and Zoe don't get along at all whatsoever. And it's very clear that something happened a very long time ago between Talia, Zoe, the hunters, and Percy basically learns they wanted Talia to join them, but she ultimately refused because she didn't want to leave Luke, and that kind of left a sore spot between them, I guess. Especially since, like, you know, obviously the hunters are all about, oh, you can't trust men, they'll betray you in the end, and Luke turned out to not be a good guy. So, I mean, she probably, you know, obviously tells all his honey's feelings, like, oh, they were right, because Luke betrayed us. But, like, honestly, it's like, okay, like, I don't know, like, with the hunter thing, it's like, kind of, I don't know how you could want to join, especially since these are a bunch of tween girls. Like, you girls have not experienced that much life yet when you, like, and I mean, like, when they decide to join, because obviously all these girls are actually centuries years old, but when they join, they're like 12, 13. It's like, girls, y'all like 12 or 13, and y'all think men are all bad or something, and they're not all bad. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bad men out there, and I mean, we can't generalize a lot of things about them that will end up being true amongst many of them, but I don't know, man. I mean, man, you guys have not experienced enough life to be totally sure. And again, like, I'm making it clear, I have a lot of criticisms with the way of life with the hunters, which technically isn't Rick Riordan's fault. Like, I'm sure it's an actual thing in Greek mythology, like the hunters and stuff, but yeah, I don't know what are gonna do. Like, I want a word with Artemis. That's all I'm saying. But basically, ultimately, Talia gets mad at Percy, so he leaves, and then he goes back to his car, because, like, this train that they're on is carrying a bunch of cars, so basically they're just all taking their own car. And, like, next thing you know, this homeless guy's sitting next to him, the homeless guy, and, like, turns out homeless guy's actually Apollo, because obviously, you know, Artemis is his sister, so of course he's like, I want my sister to be saved, you better get across there, and now gods aren't really supposed to interfere with quests just directly, but Apollo's like, I could get away with it. Wait, does Apollo? Yeah, Apollo has kids, right? He has a cabin. But he chooses to look like a teenager, usually. Oh, that's weird. Anyways, after Apollo leaves, Percy falls asleep and has a dream. But it's not like his other two dreams he's had so far, where it's the present time. This one was clearly far from the past, and there was a boy and a girl talking, and the girl's like, here, I made this sword for you so you could challenge my father and trick him and stuff. Just go up there and trick him and stuff. And this sword, very familiar. Turns out it's Riptide. Percy's sword that he got because he's Poseidon's kid. And now we don't know who the boy is, but we don't know who the boy is at all yet, but like Percy wakes up and he realizes that he recognized the girl in the dream. it's Zoe, because obviously Zoe had a life before the hunters, and it's like, great. And also, also like, also who we learned that like who the guy is later down the line in the book, like who we learned that guy in the dream was. Like it was just like Disney really retconned. Like maybe that's I mean I'm using the wrong term, but like they really retconned like Greek mythology with their movie, and you already know who I'm talking about because there's only one Disney movie that's actually about Greek mythology. But anyways, this leads us into the next chapter. All right, chapter 12. They arrive in Cloudcroft, New Mexico. Always convenient. Like I feel but because like the first book also was like traveling west through America, like to me it's like, oh, how convenient that they happen to be able to travel like three-fourths of the way through the country very easily. But then the last like half of the book is just them trying to get through like two states. Like it's just like two or three states is kind of funny to me. But basically they're because Cloudcross is up in the mountains and stuff, and it's snowy, it's winter, it's traveling's hard. They're kind of just like, oh, how do we get out of here? They can't find any way out. They ask around at different stores and stuff, and ultimately, ultimately, they didn't really know. So like Percy and Bianca find themselves alone together, and so they talk to each other. And Percy's like, so why did you want to join hunters and stuff? And she's like, well, I was spending my whole life like raising my brother and stuff because obviously they're orphans or whatever, and like, well, they're not actually orphans because they have a godparent, but I mean, might as well call them orphans anyway because their dad, yes, it is God father. The father's the God, but like I said, I won't say who he is just yet. But basically, wait, what's this say? Okay, no, I lost my train of thought. Where was I? Oh yeah, basically Bianca learns that Percy overheard a conversation between the hunters, obviously that being earlier back at camp and stuff. She's like really mad, but no time to be mad because Grover's back and he's going into a trance. Something's happening. He's like, hey, something's going on. Like, there's a gift being sent to us. He's going to be basically Grover kind of going crazy in the head. He's not crazy at all, but that's what it seems like from the outside. And, well, we can't do anything about him just yet because the skeleton soldiers have caught up. I don't know what else to call them. I just kept calling them skeleton soldiers. They show up, so basically they show up, and we have to fight. And they basically try to fight them, and it's hard to fight them off, especially when Grover can't help at all, because he's literally just sprawled out on the ground, I assume, like just going, or something, I don't know. Well, he's not going to die. He's just more like limp. He's not like really moving. I mean, his mouth's moving. He was like talking. I'm pretty sure he's like, "Oh, there's a gift coming. There's a gift coming." That gift turns out to be a wild boar that distracts the basically gets the soldiers out of the skeleton soldiers out of the way. But then it turns on them because it's a wild animal. But ultimately, after some fighting around with the wild boar, they managed to get a ride out of it all the way to the desert. And Zoe, yeah, basically, right as they're getting that ride, Zoe's like, "This boar was a blessing from Pan," and obviously Pan is like the long lost the nature god or whatever that satyrs believe are still around, and I guess the hunters believe that he's still around too because Zoe's definitely like, yeah, this is a blessing from Pan. But this leads us into the next chapter, and there might be something I forgot to mention here, but I have to double check, and if I did forget it, I'll make sure to mention it in the next clip. Quick before I talk about chapter 13, I did leave out an important detail that immediately told me who Bianca and Nico's godparent, or the father in this case, is. That happened back in chapter 12 during the skeleton undead soldier attack. Bianca stabs one of them in like the chest or something. he burst up in flames. He's dead. This is the first time one of them actually, well, I mean, he's already dead, but one of them actually got defeated. They just get this, like all the bones spill apart, then regroup. Like, that didn't happen this time. Like, bro's gone. And they're just like, whoa, Bianca, how did you do that? So basically, that did happen. And that immediately told me who it was, who the father was. Obviously, sometimes it's the mother. Like in Annabeth's case, her mother is the god, but in this case, is a father. Is a father. I was like immediately like, yes, I know who it is. I know who it is. But I still won't say it. I'm sure you guys know anyway. Especially if you're watching this. Like, come on, this is like spoiler everything. Cause I'm talking about the whole book and stuff. Like, yeah. Anyways, the actual events of chapter 13 now. They come to what turns out is the junkyard of the gods. And they decide, you know what, it's nighttime. I'm not crossing that right now. It's definitely very dangerous over there. So they decide to camp out for the night. And what do you know? Suddenly, Ares shows up. Now, there are a lot of gods and goddesses, I guess, that don't like Percy. But Ares, as far as gods go, Ares is definitely his worst enemy. Like, Percy's worst enemy. But Ares isn't the one who's here to talk. It's his girlfriend Aphrodite, that is. And Aphrodite's like, wants to talk privately to Percy in her little limousine or whatever, so they're talking. And basically Aphrodite, obviously, is the goddess of love, and she's just like, you know, Percy, you know, you could just forget about Artemis and the point of the quest and only save Annabeth. I've been watching your two story very closely, and I just love the romance. And obviously, it's like, it's so obvious that they have romantic chemistry, like Percy and Annabeth, I mean. But then, like, they're never gonna end up as a romantic couple sometime. Percy's still just like, eh? Just look dumb to me. It's like, dude, really? Really? You don't want to admit your obvious feelings for. But anyway, also on this topic of Aphrodite, there is something about her that I found interesting, and that is her appearance. She doesn't have a set appearance. Like, she literally, like, if you were to look at her, like, it's different for every individual person. Like, if you were to look at her, she would appear as your idea of the most beautiful woman ever. Like, in the book, Percy's even like, well, you know, I can't really explain what she looks like, but just picture, like, the most beautiful actress or something. Like, who you think is the most beautiful actress. And there you go. That's what she looks like, because it's like very individualistic how she appears to certain people. So hey, that's actually an interesting thing with Aphrodite that I thought I'd mention. But anyways, they now go through the junkyard, and they're now going through the junkyard, and they come across a prototype of something. I'm not even trying to pronounce his name, but his face. The one that starts with H. The guy that starts with H. The one that works in the forges or whatever. Ironwork. Metalwork. I can't pronounce the guy's name for the life of me, honestly, but, basically, a prototype of a giant robot guy named Talos shows up, and because Bianca apparently took something from the junkyard, even though you're not supposed to take anything from the junkyard, it would be bad news if you did. She did, and there was like a little figurine or something, and now they have to fight Talos and fight Bianca and stuff. And Percy and Bianca get the bright idea that, well, we can't attack it from out here, but what if we can get inside Talos? So Bianca's like, I'll be the one to go inside, and Percy's like, great idea, totally forgetting that he was supposed to protect Bianca, because that's what he promised to Nico. Hence, the early chapter be called a dangerous promise, but, ultimately, Talos is defeated, but Bianca's dead. They can't find her body anywhere. She's dead, though. She is dead, though. Like, they can't find her body anywhere, though, but they're like, yeah, no, she's dead, because they remember the prophecies, like, one will be lost in the land without rain. Well, Bianca is nowhere to be seen. We are in the desert. Guess she's dead. Like I said, there were going to be 2 character deaths, so, I don't think Bianca's gonna stay dead forever. Like, I felt like we just like in the other character that ends up dying, we just met two, but we learned a lot more about the other character that we did, Bianca. So I'm like, and also there's Nika. So I'm like, I think Bianca's gonna come back at some point in book 4 or 5, but I don't know yet. I don't know, but excuse me. Anyways, that's the end of this chapter. Let's get into the next one. I think earlier I said there was 12 skeleton soldiers total. Apparently there was actually 13, not 12. 12 is just how many there are after Bianca killed one earlier. But basically, in this chapter, they have arrived at Hoover Dam, Nevada, I believe. I think Nevada. I think Nebraska's somewhere else. Whatever. Actually, not whatever. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? I don't know where my phone is. Okay then, never mind. I'm just gonna make assumptions. Basically they decided to take a break at Hoover Dam. Besides, apparently Hoover Dam is one of Annabeth's personal favorite monuments, because obviously she's really big on monuments and architecture and that kind of thing, being Athena's daughter and all. And basically Percy's like, well, we gotta go there for her, you know. And so they're there while the others go to the snack bar to get some food and stuff. Percy stays behind because he saw something in the water. The cow serpent from earlier that he saved from being stuck in that fisher net or whatever. And by the way, he named this cow serpent Bessie, but although we do later learn it's actually a boy, and actually plays a big role, this Bessie does. But also, Bessie's like the most basic cow name ever. That's hilarious to me that Percy's like, yeah, I'm just gonna call you Bessie. Like, it's the most basic cow name ever. But basically, suddenly, oh my gosh, suddenly there is the 12 remaining undead soldier guys here. And Percy's like, well, shoot, I need to go find the others. And he ends up in the basement in the turbines. Although a woman with the same eyes as Athena, not Athena, wait, it is Athena, same eyes as Annabeth, and he's like, I think later Percy's like, pretty sure that was Athena, like, is like a tour guide into Hoover Dam, and like, she points him to an exit, like, she's like, just go that way, you'll find your exit. So, like, and later, like, he was just like, you look a lot like Annabeth, you must be Athena or something. He doesn't actually say that to her, but Percy's pretty sure. But ultimately, so he's hiding, looking around, he's hiding around, like, looking, like, where should I go? And he hears something, so he swings his sword. Right through a mortal girl. But the thing is that the mist isn't affecting her. This girl, who we learn is named Rachel Elizabeth Dare. She sees all the mythological stuff fine. She even later sees the skeleton soldiers just fine. She sees them as what they are, not as what the mist makes them out to be, which is, I guess, park security guard or something, like security guards for like the Hoover Dam, like National Park or whatever. I mean, isn't it a national park? You okay, Bluey? All right. But basically, this Rachel Elizabeth Dare girl helps Percy get out of there by lying that she saw him go one way while he was actually hiding in the restroom where she was standing in front of. And ultimately, Percy makes his way up to the snack bar, and like now all the skeleton soldiers are like closing in all around the snack bar, and he's like telling the others, "Yo, we gotta get out of here. They found us. We gotta get out of here." And now they're really cornered, and Grover does what Grover does. I guess he threw his burrito at one of them and started a whole food fight. Like, all the kids that were in the snack bar just start food fighting and stuff. And our main characters managed to escape. Basically managed to escape and get to these like little like statue monuments of like I believe there were like eagles or something. It was actually like it was something that Athena made in honor of Zeus. It's like the things where if you rub the toes, it's like lucky or whatever. Anyway, the skeleton soldiers are here. They're cornering him by these little statue monuments, and Talia gives a quick prayer to her dad Zeus, and the statues come to life, block out the soldiers' like gun attacks, and they agreed to giving our main characters a ride to San Francisco. I believe this actually brings in San Francisco in the next chapter. I'll have to look at my notes for the next chapter to tell you for certain. Let's get into the next chapter then. Alright, chapter 15, like the main events are kind of shorter. There was something I didn't mention with Apollo earlier, which I am going to mention here now. Apollo told Percy back in the train car that, like, hey, when you get to San Francisco, look for the old man of the sea, like Nereus, or whatever his name. I don't know how to pronounce some of these names, honestly. So I'm just gonna say Nereus. Bluey, stop. Bluey. Thank you, Bluey. Let's see, it's gonna start scratching again. Excuse me a moment. Hey, Bluey, honey. Here. How about you sit with me for this one? Apologies, guys. So basically, Percy and the others, once in San Francisco, they go to look for Nereus, and he actually catches him. And then you only get to ask him one question per catch, and so it's like they have like 3 different questions they want to ask. Ultimately, Percy's like, "What is the monster that the prophecy spoke about?" He's like, "What are you, stupid? It's right there." And he's pointing at none other than Bessie, the cow serpent. And this is when everybody realizes that the monster wasn't the type of monster they were thinking of that was mentioned in the prophecy. And ultimately, it turns out Dr. Thorne, the Manticore, shows up with a backup or something. I don't know if it wasn't skeleton soldiers, I don't think. Yeah, it wasn't the skeleton soldiers. It was like he had his own backup, but basically, the group in the fight, they all are about to die when Percy managed to send an iris message to who he hoped would be Chiron, but it turned out to be Mr. D, and he actually manages to get Mr. D to save them. And Mr. D actually saves them. Like, he causes an attack, like grapevine attack or something on the enemies, and I'm kind of stuttering over my words right now because I'm trying to think because I was kind of like, oh, Mr. D, so you do like the heroes a little bit, right? You do, right? You must have some Percy Jackson. And actually, there's definitely a big hint in this because for the first time ever, Mr. D actually didn't call him Peter Johnson. He actually calls him Percy Jackson, and Percy, before the Irish message fades out, he's like, "Sir, you actually called me by my real name." Mr. D obviously don't want to admit it. It was just like, "Oh, what do you mean, Peter Johnson?" So you're like, "No, dude, we caught you, man. We caught you." But anyway, ultimately, now that fight's over with, it's always like, "Man, I need to go home," because the place they're going, turns out it was Zoe's home. Was Zoe's home. So this leads us to the next chapter. I just let Bluey out. Usually the cat starts scratching my hamper and then they want to be let out, and he was, and I just was recording when he started doing it, so I didn't really want to yet. But chapter 16. Since they're in San Francisco, where Annabeth's family now lives, because her father, stepmother, and 2 stepbrothers moved to San Francisco for the father's job, because of the father's job. And San Francisco is not a place where Annabeth could live because she's a half-blood and everything. There's just too many monsters in the San Francisco area because of the mountain thing that our heroes are actually going to right now. So that was the whole thing. But basically, they stopped by Annabeth's family's house, and they get to after explaining everything to Mr. Chase, they actually get to borrow his car. He did actually recommend. He offered for them to use his biplane, because he actually has a plane, but being a biplane, it only carries 2 people, and we have four heroes. 4 heroes, but actually 3 heroes. Wait a minute, what am I talking about? 3 heroes. I totally forgot. Chapter 15. Grover. They decide that Grover is going to go back to New York with Bessie. Grover's not even with him anymore. I totally forgot, but I'm so sorry, guys. I forgot about that. He's not even there anymore. He's headed back to New York with Bessie, the cow. He's headed through the ocean. Somehow. Anyways, our three remaining heroes that are in the group, they are, obviously they have to protect Bessie because this monster, if either, Percy or Talia were to murder Bessie and burn its entrails or whatever, they would have the power to overthrow Olympus entirely, so they can't risk that somehow happening, so Grover had to bring Bessie back to New York for safety and stuff, but basically, ultimately, they're basically driving their car. Zoe's driving the car and stuff, and suddenly they crash because of a lightning bolt that strikes the car and destroys it after they get out, though. No one dies or anything. And at first, Talia's like, that must have been my dad and stuff, but ultimately Percy's able to, Percy and Zoe, whatever, they're able to convince her, no, look, it wasn't your dad, it's definitely the bad guys, it's definitely the General, Kronos, it's definitely Kronos, they're trying to trick you, make you think Zeus is against you or something. But anyway, they get into the garden where Zoe used to live with her 4 sisters and father before she was banished from the family forever, because the whole thing that happened in Percy's dream that they had. And at this point, we learned it was... Yeah, at this point, I think we learned that it was Hercules. At this point, we have learned that boy was actually Hercules. That ruined Zoe's life, basically. Her own life. And, he didn't even bother to mention that it was actually Zoe that made his sword. But, basically, in the garden, the sisters are like, we're not letting it pass. But then Zoe has a bright idea of waking up a dragon. I said the big dragon is there, Ladon, whatever. And our group manages to get past the dragon. Although Zoe did get a wound that she shakes off. She's like, it's whatever. And they get up to the mountain. And this is when we learn that the general is Zoe's father, Atlas, the guy that holds up the sky. So that leads us into the next chapter, chapter 17. Alright, action-packed chapter. This is a very action-packed chapter, but basically, all the bad guys are up there in the mountain with our heroes, our 3 heroes, because there's only 3 of them at this point, because Grover's headed back to New York, let's remember that, and also Bianca's dead. Poor Bianca. Although I do think she had a bad sense of judgment joining the Hunters. I don't think that was a good idea. I don't know. I have some things against the Hunters, the way of life, as you can tell. Anyways, Atlas and Atlas and Luke try to get Talia to join their side one more time. Because Talia is literally going to be 16 in 1 or 2 days. So it's it could be her, but she doesn't. A fight breaks out. Together, Percy and Artemis make it so that Atlas gets stuck back in his sky-holding position again, where he forever has to hold up the sky. And at the end of this battle, too, Luke gets pushed basically just by Talia, off the cliff, and it looks like he's dead. He was looking weak this book. I'm telling you, I kept describing him looking so weak and stuff, and I was just like, oh, I would feel bad, but also, I don't know, I don't dislike Luke. I think Luke's a really interesting character, but I have a hard time feeling bad for him, I guess. Anyways, basically, while the guys that were up there were, defeated, basically, there is a bunch, way too many, soldiers, monsters, and half-bloods, demigods, whatever, coming from the Princess Andromeda cruise ship up to the top of the mountain to attack our heroes, but, yeah, and I believe, and they're coming, but this is when Mr. Chase shows up in his biplane, and he's, shooting bolts at everything. Also, Annabeth is here, by the way, because obviously Annabeth is now saved since they arrived at the mountain, but, normal mortal bullets wouldn't do anything to the creatures that are surrounding them and stuff, but turns out Mr. Chase put put the, I forget what it's called, celestial metal, I think, celestial metal into the bullet encasings. So that's like what made them work on the monsters and stuff, which he was only able to do because Annabeth, the last time she left home, she actually left behind some celestial bronze weapons of hers. But anyway, everybody gets an escape on Artemis's moon chariot. Since it's sunset, she can call her chariot and bring the moon across or whatever. And Percy even mentions, hey, this feels a lot like Santa Claus. You even have reindeer pulling it. And Artemis is just like, where do you think the legend of Santa Claus came from? And I'm just like, how did they go from 12-year-old girl... How did they see, 12-year-old girl, this guy think, oh yes, very elderly, fat man with a red suit and a white beard. I don't know, maybe that's just what the mist made people see? I don't know, but, and also, this isn't, wait, never mind, it is Christmas, never mind. I was gonna say, it's not even Christmas, but, this is something that Artemis does, every night, why is it only for Christmas? Because it is technically, I think, Christmas Eve in the book at this point, but, yeah, because, the winter solstice, is, their deadline. I guess that's on Christmas. But, yeah, anyways, this leads us into the next chapter, chapter 18. Just a few more chapters. I'm losing my voice doing this. My voice is getting tired. Alright, so chapter 18. Now, I didn't mention this, but, at the end of the last chapter, Zoe's now dying because of the wound she got from Ladon the dragon. It was poisonous, and she's dying, even... It's just she's dying, and now she's dead. The last line of the prophecy that one would die from their father's hand or parent's hand or whatever. And this turned out to be Zoe because Atlas is her father, and Atlas is the one that delivered the final blow, so to speak. Even though it was the poison from Ladon's wound that was really killing her. I mean, what he did in the attack, basically. Yeah, so obviously Artemis, Zoe was, Artemis's, lieutenant and everything, so, obviously Artemis is really sad, and so because, she's, the goddess of the moon and stuff, too, she creates a constellation in the sky to be in honor of Zoe, so you basically, in the night time, you can see Zoe as being a hunter, running in the sky or something. Well, not actually literally running, but in a running position. Basically, because of the winter solstice and everything, Artemis is like, yo, I gotta get to Olympus right now, but I will send you guys transportation. So she leaves on her chariot, and then Blackjack and two other Pegasi come and carry our main characters, not including Mr. Chase. He's staying in San Francisco, carrying our main characters, Annabeth, Percy, Talia, and I think that's it. I think it's just Percy, Annabeth, and Talia, and basically bringing them back. And during this ride, Annabeth tells Percy, "Yo, I think Luke is still alive," and Percy's just like, "Well, he was dead," and Annabeth's like, "Nah, I think he's alive." And it's still pretty clear that she has some feelings for Luke still or something. And Percy obviously finds this really annoying. He has tried to kill us so many times. He's betrayed us. And to me, it's Annabeth, obviously, between Annabeth and Talia, who were both really close to Luke, at one time, it's actually a little surprising to me that Annabeth is the one that's struggling more with accepting that, because to me, you'd think it would be Talia, because she wasn't there yet for the big betrayal and stuff. The last thing she remembers, Luke was a good old friend and stuff, and I feel like it would be harder for Talia, because she had been spent all that time as a pine tree. She'd be like, no, this must not have happened. I feel like it would have been Talia, but I guess it's Annabeth. Maybe it's because Annabeth had a big old crush on him, I don't know. I mean, hey, from my understanding, he is blonde, and I love blonde guys. So what am I talking about? What am I talking about? Anyways, I mean, I'm pretty sure, yeah, he's blonde in the books. I'm pretty sure. He's not blonde in he's blonde in the movies, but movies suck. Why would I want to watch the Percy Jackson movies? Anyways, they arrive at Olympus, bringing us to chapter 19. Alright, so I'm going to summarize this as quickly as possible. Basically, Council of the Gods. basically deciding the fate of Talia and Percy. Like, should we kill them or not? And Artemis manages to get Talia out of this by having Talia be her new lieutenant, because even though she's literally turning 16 like tomorrow or whatever, like she if she joins the hunt and becomes immortal, she will never turn 16. So that takes her out of being a possibility for the prophecy. But so now it's Percy, but ultimately they all decide to not kill Percy. So now everybody has a party to celebrate. Like, they're, just celebrate, I guess. And during, Percy does talk to a lot of people during this party, but there's really only two notable ones, which is Poseidon and Athena. Like, he talks to Poseidon, and, like, Poseidon's, it says, like, when Annabeth said that Luke is still alive, she is correct. Luke is still out there. Percy's like, gosh darn it. And he talks to Athena, and Athena, obviously, she probably sees the romantic chemistry between Annabeth and Percy, and she's just like, I don't approve of your friendship with my daughter, and stuff. And it's just like, yo, okay, man. And I believe at this point, Annabeth even came over. It's like, Mom, what are you doing? Or she also was complaining to her mom, like, because Athena was against letting Percy live earlier. But ultimately, at the end of this chapter, remember how back at how I said they were basically soul dancing, like Percy and Annabeth, like at the military school at the dance and blend in and stuff, like with with the middle schoolers there and stuff, like. Finally, Percy and Annabeth get to finish that dance. So he's like, "Yo, what's this dance before?" And I'm just like, I'm pretty sure they're gonna end up as a couple, but like, I'm just like, can it happen already? They're kind of cute. Percy and Annabeth are like my two favorite characters, honestly. She's way more likable than say like Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. They're basically the same character, so. But anyway, this leads us into chapter 20, and I'm just looking at all the sentences I wrote down for chapter 20. It's long, so let's get into chapter 20. Alright, so chapter 20. We're back at Camp Half-Blood. And Clarice is back, Clarice is back from her scouting trip she was on. Meanwhile, Percy has to tell Nico that his older sister is dead, which basically means in Nico's eyes, Percy failed to keep his promise of protecting Bianca, but, which, obviously, Nico does not react well to this. He totally blames Percy for it, and honestly, Percy was kind of the one that was like, yeah, Bianca, go inside Talos, or whatever the hell. But, basically, Nico's blaming Bianca for, not blaming Bianca, blaming Percy for Bianca's death. I can't blame Bianca for it. Anyway, basically, he's mad at Percy, so he runs off, and Percy tries to follow him. Even tries to give him, the gift Bianca wanted Nico to have, which was the one mythal magic statue thing that he didn't have, like, the one god he didn't have. But Nico doesn't want it, so he throws it to the side. And Percy, before Percy can go grab it or stop Nico or anything, because at this point, there's only 4 of the undead skeleton soldiers left. There's only 4 of them left, and they come back, and Percy's like, Nico, go get help, while he's trying to fight them off and stuff, but Nico's refusing to get help because he's too mad at Percy, and ultimately Nico gets too overwhelmed because of the skeleton soldiers, and he basically covers his ears and he screams to go away, and suddenly a chasm opens up that swallows the skeleton soldiers whole, and they're gone. They're killed. And Percy's kind of just like, what the hell? But then Nico runs off, not to be seen again. Not to be seen again, at least for this book. I'm sure he'll be seen again in the next one. I'm sure he will. Just like with Luke. Except I hope Nico doesn't turn evil like Luke, because we already got one of these guys. But, basically, Percy picks back up the little god statue that Bianca wanted Nico to have, and he realizes that he recognized it, because he knew, he looked at it before, and he's like, the guy looks familiar, and that's when he realizes something I pretty much knew since Bianca had killed the first, skeleton soldier, and that is, the statue's Hades, which I wasn't 100% sure about. I mean, how would I know that? I was just like, oh, it's a statue, but, what I did know is that, these two, their father is Hades, which you would think, does that mean all 3 of the main 3 broke their promise after World War II to not have any more kids? No. Hades never broke a promise, you see, because Bianca and Nico were born in, who were born in like the 1920s. Remember the casino from the first book? Well, it turns out they were stuck there for decades. Apologies about that. What I was saying is that it was pretty obvious that Hades was their father, and like I said, they were actually born before the promise because they were stuck in a casino for forever. So that's why Hades still gets to be like, "Ha! I'm the only one who didn't break our promise from right after World War II." So the basically was that. And I honestly, what kind of was like to me, it was like Hades must be their dads because they're the only ones who can kill these undead creatures. And well, Hades is the lord of the dead. He's the god of the dead, god of the underworld. So like, of course, his kids would be the only ones who were able to defeat these things. Other than another god, which obviously that was Mr. D before, but that was the actual god. So, but anyways, basically, Percy tells Grover and Annabeth this, and they decide not to tell anyone because if someone knew that Nico and Bianca, an extent, like, are the kids of Hades of all people, like, of all the gods, Hades, like, that would just be terrible because Hades obviously is like an outcast and everything. Like, he doesn't even have his own cabin. He doesn't even have his own cabin. So, like, technically, if Nico had been claimed by his dad, he wouldn't even have had a cabin, actual cabin to stay. I'd probably just stay with Hermes forever. Because Hades doesn't even get a cabin. I always forget that too. Like, I'm always like, okay, yeah, 12, so that one must be Hades's, right? But I'm wait, no, that's Artemis's honorary cabin. But ultimately, at the end of the chapter, the last thing we get to hear is Grover running outside where everyone was talking, where I guess where Percy was hanging out with somebody else. I think it might have been Chiron and Annabeth. And he's like, I just heard Pan speak in my mind. He said I await you, and that's basically the end of the book. And this leads me to my final thoughts. Alright, my final thoughts. I give this book a score of 8 out of 10, which is the same as Lightning Thief, but still one below Sea and Monsters. Sea and Monsters remains my favorite Percy Jackson book so far. Like, this one was really fun. It was very interesting. The twists were nice, I guess. I'm also very interested in why Rachel Elizabeth Dare was able to see all the stuff as being immortal, but maybe it's like with Sally, because Sally could see everything, and it isn't even just because she had a kid with Poseidon, you know? Like, I feel like, I don't know. I'm just to see if maybe not like what that's about, but I mean, and I guess it was just a chance means. I don't know if she's gonna show up again. Maybe she will. I don't know, but yeah, and like honestly, Hades being the father of Bianca and Nico is pretty interesting because like, you know, even though he's like the outcast god, like that doesn't mean he doesn't have kids running around, well, half bloods running around because they're the only ones though because they were actually, you know, like I said, the casino, like Hades never broke the truce between the three main, you know, like he never broke that promise to never have any kids after World War II. These two just happened to be stuck at a casino that lets you not age ever. And I believe they got out because of a lawyer, but anyway, yeah, it was a pretty good book, pretty good. I was disappointed that Annabeth wasn't there for the majority of the time because Percy and Annabeth, like I said earlier, are my two favorite characters, and they have such nice scenes together, and also Talia was from time to time annoying, and you already know how I feel about the hunters, because like honestly, it's just like what sounds like a dream to them sounds like a nightmare to me. Like, what do you mean, no men, and I only have to spend my time with women for the rest of my eternal life? It's just, you know, but anyways, that's the video. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Make sure to check out my social links. They're in my channel bio and in the description below. They include my Discord and my Instagram. And speaking of Discord, when I reach 50 subscribers, I plan on opening up a Discord server, which will only be for subscribers. Make sure to subscribe so you can be part of that, because that is what I'm going to do for my current goal of 50 subs. You know, so yeah, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye now.